Good morning.
You can let your finger go. There you go.
Okay, it's not a push to talk.
You don't have to keep holding.
Okay. All right, so good morning. The meeting is now being recorded because there's going to be discussion around the new tax rates and tax bills, so I'm sure that will generate a lot of public interest. Yeah. Okay, so we will start with the agenda, Selectmen's update. And
Can you all hear me? No? Okay. The Select Board completed the review of department budgets, and now the Budget Committee is going to take over and review everything as well. We hired a firm to help us locate a site, design it, and give us the cost of a new police station. The Police Department was awarded a technical and equipment grant for dispatch. The total amount was $416,000, so we really appreciate the fact that Chief Cobb applied for that grant. There was also a Tri-Town assessing meeting this week, and the budget was approved. The three towns that pay for the budget, pay for the Tri-Town assessors are Newbury, New London, and Sunapee. New London pays 32.8% of the budget. Sunapee pays 37.4%, and Newbury pays 29.76%. And what it's based on are the number of lots in each town. So the more lots you have, the more you're going to pay the assessors. So that was done. And Bill is going to talk about recycling.
Okay, so last Saturday, some of you may have participated in the styrofoam recycling thing. For those of you who don't know, we collected styrofoam and sent it up to Guilford, to the Public Works Department there, where they have a program to deal with styrofoam. We collected over 100 pounds of styrofoam. When you think about those little trays you get at the grocery store, we 100 pounds of it. It goes to a company called Soprema in Canada eventually, where it's made into foam board insulation, and 70% of that foam board is made of this material. So this is another exciting recycling thing. And on the composting front, we've now got over 10 tons of compost that we've delivered. So those two excellent programs that have been working through the past several months.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about Halloween. If any of you don't have small children and weren't out last Sunday on Main Street, it was a wonderful event. I was handing out candy over here at Switchback. Nancy, I know, was out directing traffic down by the SAU. The Chief Cobb and Chief Lyon did an amazing job, along with Putnam Kidder, organizing the whole event. I think the library counted 2,000 trick-or-treaters that they handed candy out to, right? So then plus all the parents, we probably had a crowd of about 2,500 people out here on Main Street. It was amazing. Very cool. And all the Roberta Hollingers Zumba witch dancers down in the parking lot. So thank you to Chief Cobb, Chief Lyon, Putnam Kidder, all the volunteers. It was a really great event.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions, comments? All right, we will, just, next item on the agenda is the review assignments from the October meeting, because we had the little kind of a focus group or brainstorming session. I don't know if I sent out the list of the assignments. Did I get, okay, I guess I didn't. So I'm just going to write down the topics. I'll read off the topics that we listed. There was a couple things that nobody actually signed up for. I'm going to put who actually signed up for the group, and there may be a little bit of duplication. So in the workforce housing, there's three of these that I put an asterisk with, that just because there's actually town agencies or departments that have to deal with it, so just, we'll have to get them involved with that. But for the workforce housing, it had Gene Weber, and I don't know if there was anybody else that actually just didn't sign up on the list or whatever, but, I don't think nobody's going to be turned off the committee because you didn't sign up or whatever, so. So Gene's the only one I have for workforce housing. The town departments and community messaging was myself, Janet, Steve, and Jean. The library and grants, nobody signed up for, but those are town departments. Beach Day cleanup with Kathy. Oh, Patty, oh, sorry. All right. Good thing I didn't send it out. Pickleball was Steve, John, and Linda. And natural areas, landscaping is Mark. I did see him the other day. He said he wasn't going to be able to make it today, but he's in on that. Nobody signed up for invasive species or the global issues, local involvement,
Actually, we have people for invasive species.
Okay.
I don't know how that, yeah, anyway, give them up here.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I know people brought the stuff up and everything, but just somehow didn't get onto yeah. And then the seniors, transportation and other assistance was Janet and Arden, and Nancy, were you in and all that, or? No, I'm not, no. Yeah, I'm not pushing you onto it, I didn't know if you just didn't get a chance to sign up, so. So those are the groups. Anybody else that wants to, get this out? And then the other thing, and I would just ask, is if somebody from the group would just kind of take the lead as kind of the contact, just so we can make contact if there's other questions or whatever to go through it.
I'll take the lead for the messaging and the pickleball.
Okay. Let's see.
Can you tell me what the library one was again? Grants to try to help promote?
Was it more like a Friends of the Library?
Which they have, but
Yeah.
it was the ongoing saga of the library building and the amount of costs to the town relative to this, the mobile being a new one, that perhaps there needed to be a deep dive to look at what are the board in the long term relative to mitigating some of the ongoing expense that would just seem to be pouring into that building, which everyone loves, but now
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
So that's how it came up in the context of that, but, perhaps we could have the director or someone from the board of trustees come and we could talk to that point, as opposed to having a subcommittee.
Yeah, and then now I recall some of that was kind of the direction of, more or less getting it with the trustees and the director and trying
Because
to,
at that point, the library was still closed because of the mold issue, so.
all right, so groups can send, anybody that wants to take over a particular group just as a point of contact, and we will move from there. All right, next one. Sure.
Thank you. So it's Bob Lyon from New London. So I brought up at the last meeting the idea about control and possible eradication of invasive species, and we were looking at the Rip and Debbie Cross property on Main Street as you go down towards the Flying Goose on the right-hand side. Those fields, most of them are actually in conservatorship through Osborne Sargent, but they're basically, the trees in there are being killed off through the invasive bittersweet vine, so that was the background to it. So actually, Arden, who's not here today, Arden and I met this past week with Rip and Debbie Cross, and we walked the property, and we've looked at the first area that we're going to work on, and we're going to do it not this upcoming week, we're going to meet the following week. So if anybody would like to join us, we figure probably a 4-hour work session. We'll have clippers, we'll have chainsaws, and the idea is just to cut those existing vines. And it might turn into probably once a year, because the vines do come back after a year, but we're not going to put any chemical treatment, it's all going to be mechanical, we'll be cutting the vines. with the intent to save those tree lines for that spectacular view that we have in town. But through the process, the question came up, and don't get me wrong, we're perfectly happy to do this, and we'll do it whether or not it's through the citizen committee, but that's private property. So it's the cross property, and I think everything else that we've talked about this morning has been basically, it's the town. So it's just a question, and maybe Kim, you could weigh in on this. Is this the right venue to have that group since it's private property? And again, we don't care, we're gonna do it regardless, but does that create any issue or problem since it's private property?
No, I think this group can talk about it. I mean, the town won't be liable for whatever happens over there if somebody gets hurt with a chainsaw or anything like that. And you know, the invasive, that is an issue as far as we do have some on town property, edges of the roads, and Bob Harrington talks about it a lot, and they try to mitigate some of it. But the problem is, then it becomes private property, and there are a lot of people who don't want chemicals on their property, and I'm talking about knotweed. I mean, that's the one that they're working on, so, you know, it's a tough situation. But I think if people want to go on private property and volunteer their time, that's, you know, on sort of but this is a good venue to talk about it, to the extent that it is on town property. You know, what can we do on town properties?
Yeah, and I think the way we're looking at it, this property here is kind of, it's a first attempt at doing something like this, and it could expand. Maybe next year we go on to different properties, some of which might include the town, so it could expand to that. So that's good input. We'll continue as planned. If anybody would like to help, just give me a shout. Again, it's Bob Lyon. You can find me here or through somebody here to get my email. One other comment, I don't know where that's going with the pickleball, but are you aware of the group that plays at Colby Sawyer every Tuesday and Thursday? And are you aware of the badminton as well? You saw that in the shopper. So I played last night, and it's something we're trying to get some new members for that, and it's really a fun thing to do. So glad to you know, give you any input that I have on that. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and then the other, just, did anybody on these invasive species, has anybody looked into possibly burning the brush, or, and I don't, this actually would have been a good year for the burning of it because it's pretty much. Does it? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure if it does either, but I know burning fields does.
I mean, if we tear down a vine and it's actually separated from the roots, that can be burned. But also, I know on Rip's property over there, I think he called it, is it wild Irish rose? It's that dense prickery stuff. They used to call it the poor man's barbed wire or something. So it's all his old. I mean, you can't. We're gonna have to cut a bunch of that stuff down just to get to the trees. Yeah. He did mention something about a burn pile. So and he's got the perfect spot to do that. Plus, it's really wet back there. But anyway.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on that? We'll go to the tax rate. Everybody wants to know about that.
Everybody's favorite topic. Okay. Those of you who were here in 2015 may recall this project. This is the Academy Building. I just put that up there as a kind of a historical reminder and how your taxes are spent. So this was a project that town meeting voted in $350,000. I think we did come in under budget, but you remember that, Maureen, when we did that? It was a big project. All the siding came off, there was insulation put in, all the windows were changed, so. Yeah, you could put fingers through, and I think they found a bullet in the wood on this side of the building, so yeah, that was fun. It was a great project. That was Trumbull Nelson did that. Okay, so let's talk about tax rate. And we'll start with the really basic things, and many of you may already know these things, but it's kind of a good reminder, I think. Oh, sorry. Remind me to call my mother, which I forgot to do, but that's okay. Hopefully she won't call me. I think I told her I had a meeting, so. Okay. Parts of the tax rate, I'll remember when I leave, I hope. You see these things on your tax bills. We have the municipal piece. That's the appropriations that you folks vote in at town meeting, less the non-property tax revenues, things like motor vehicles. Will collects the most non-property tax funds that reduce taxes in motor vehicles. It also includes permits, income from departments, state aid, those kinds of things. We also have the county payment. We're part of Merrimack County, which runs the nursing home, registry of deeds, where your property records are recorded, the jail, the sheriff's department. There are 25 towns and 2 cities in Merrimack County. New London is the 3rd highest payer. You pay $3,563,394. That's what the payment will be. We'll be sending it in a couple of days, couple of weeks. We will get it over there. And just in case you're curious, Concord is number 1 and Hooksit's number 2. New London's number 3, and then Newbury's number 5. And this is based on assessed valuation, so the fact that New London has a high valuation puts us up there. We also have local education, part of the Kearsarge Regional School District, which includes New London, Bradford, Newbury, Sutton, Warner, and Wilmot. And then we have the state education, which is kind of controversial, I guess. It's assessed by the state of New Hampshire pursuant to RSA 76:3, which requires the collection of $363 million from the 234 towns and cities, and then it's apportioned out. So New London's, ours is up this year. What did I say it was? 30-something%. We're back to the 2020 level. I think it's, what did I say, it was 36%? 37? Right. We are back to the 2020 level. During COVID, there was a lot of funds coming from the federal government, which the state used to lower the burden on towns and cities, so now we are back to the 2020 level. So while that's a big increase, it's back to 2020. And then those of you in the water precinct, you have that part of the tax rate as well. So, the state of New Hampshire sets the tax rate. The selectmen do not. They set the tax rate by getting various reports from the town, one of which is the appropriations voted at town meeting, right? They get the budget before town meeting, but at town meeting, changes are made, so we actually file a report of what was actually voted. We also submit estimated revenues. We guess, using, historical data that we have, things that we know might happen, we give them estimated revenues. And then we also tell them what is the taxable value of the town. So they need all those things from the town of New London. Much of it comes from the assessing department and Lynn, the financial pieces. The DRA also receives information from the county, the school, state education, and the precinct, right? Those are the other pieces to your tax rate. So, once they get all of that stuff, they issue a preliminary tax rate. And we got this early this week. And as you can see, it might be hard to see the numbers, but they give us a preliminary rate which is before the selectmen use the unassigned fund balance. So they list out the municipal, county, local education, state education, using the valuation that we gave to them. You need something, Maureen? Oh, sorry. So once we get this form, it's in the hands of the selectmen to decide how much of the unreserved fund balance will they use to reduce the municipal tax rate. They can't reduce any of the others, obviously, but they can reduce the municipal tax rate. This step was done yesterday morning. Selectmen met, and they voted to use $600,000, which is up from what they have done in several past years where they used $450,000. So the selectmen decided they wanted to bring the municipal tax rate down a little further, so they added to it. So the unassigned fund balance. It can be controversial. What is it? And I'm going to read this, exactly how it comes from NHMA, which I think is a good explanation. In government accounting, fund balance is the difference between assets and liabilities resulting in a surplus or a deficit. A common misconception is that fund balance is a cash account associated with or correlated to a government's bank account balance. Fund balance is sometimes misunderstood and criticized as an unnecessary accumulation of money that could be used to lower taxes and fees. A municipality's ability to use unassigned fund balance can be seen as a driving factor behind maintaining stable tax rates. And I think that's important to remember. I mean, it helps to keep the tax rate stable, because the selectmen are able to look at the conditions that are going on at that time and even forecast what's coming down the road and use that fund balance. I have heard people say, Kim, they should use most of it, they should, we don't need that much, and things like that. But it's really important, I think, to remember that it is very helpful in terms of a stable tax rate. Again, here's why we don't use all of it. As a financial tool, the main objective of establishing and maintaining a fund balance reserve is to create a strong fiscal position that will allow a local government to weather negative economic trends and unforeseen circumstances. Essentially, maintaining the appropriate level of fund balance will mitigate current and future risk and to ensure a stable cash flow. So I think you should all feel comfortable that your selectmen are watching out for that and not being overly aggressive with the use of the fund balance. The state gives us recommendations. The fourth page of that preliminary tax rate that I showed you earlier, this is the fourth page where the state says, look, you're currently holding 9.58% in your fund balance. It's $2,468,289. So the selectmen looked at that and they said, the state recommends between 5 and 17%. And so you can see, it's probably hard to see, but 5%, retaining 5% would have been $1,288,074. That would be the lowest that the state would recommend. Now, again, these are recommendations. The town could have gone lower. They could keep more than 17%. But New London is, I think, fairly conservative with it. They don't go under the 5%. So that $600,000 that they decided to use reduced the tax rate from 334 to 305. And it brought down our unassigned fund balance to $1,880,289, which is about 7.2%. So it's, a little bit over the 5%. Again, this is within the 5 to 17% that the DRA recommends.
Kim,
So, yep.
And then with a adequate fund balance or reserve fund balance, then that helps when you do have to go for bonds, right? Because it shows a little more.
Yeah, it shows healthy bottom line for the town. It also helps with cash flow. If we had a fund balance that was much lower, we'd have problems with cash flow. And Lynn is always biting her nails in December because we need to send that $3 million plus to the county, December 18th. It will be there. I usually drive it over. We don't like to do fund transfers given the bad things that have happened. So most town administrators or finance officers will actually drive it over to Boscawen because we want them to get it at the very last minute so that the town has the $3 million as long as possible. But it's no joke. You pay it because they start charging interest the next day. And so we never obviously want to pay interest on a $3 million plus bill. So we will get it to them, and Lynn has to plan throughout the year to make sure we have that cash in the bank to pay that bill, and we will. So late last night, Will got the email that we have the tax rate from the state of New Hampshire, subject to we need to make sure that this balances out with our valuation to make sure that we're not more than 0.5% off of what we're supposed to collect. So the tax rate that we believe we are going to send out is $10.81. The town went down from the 335 to 334 to 305. So it's 1081. The water precinct went down. It's down to 74 cents. So those of you on the precinct will notice a reduction there. Not sure what's going on with them, but I think they are planning on doing their replacement soon, so you'll be seeing more about that. All of the tax efforts, you see the tax efforts there, all municipal, county, local education, and state education, they're all up this year. So given that, many tax bills will go up. We did have the revaluation of the update. Some people will go down. Some people's tax bills will go down, some people will go up. It really just depends on how much your property changed through the update.
How does the 1081 compare to 2022?
Well, it's hard to say. It was 15-something. It's hard because the value is so different. We really can't compare apples. So that's why I looked at the tax effort, how much are we increasing? So municipal, we're getting 10% more. So all of those 4 entities are up. We will be sending more money or spending more money to those 4 efforts. But it is hard, given the complete change in valuation. So this is probably not a surprise to everybody. You've seen these pie charts when we do the public hearing on the budget. The town, that's 28% of the total of the 1081, and I didn't include in here the water precinct. So the town is 28%, the county is 16%, state education is 11%, and then local education, and I think this is common in all towns, is the biggest portion of it. So,
And the state education makes us one of the donor communities?
well, they're not doing donors yet.
Yet.
That hasn't come back yet. The state education amount that we pay, we do get to keep in our district. And discussions of donor towns of, when was that, the 80s, I think? But
Yeah, because
was it the
the
90s? Yeah.
Supreme Court cases, but it's,
And, you know, you probably hear there is a lot going on in New Hampshire about how to pay for public education, whether donor towns will come back, and those who don't know what donor towns is, it's towns like New London, Newbury, that can raise more in property taxes, goes to the state, and then they divvy it out to towns that are less fortunate and have a lower tax base. So we'll see what happens with that. I think everybody agrees that something's got to be done for the towns that are.
And in early January, your Sarge holds the deliberative session on the budget. And New London is part of that discussion, although we only generally have a handful of folks from New London who show up. But if you're interested, it's an interesting meeting, and I think it's important since it is 45% of our budget. To attend and certainly contribute to that.
It's $52 million budget.
Yeah.
District budget.
So state education is not about the state universities,
No.
colleges, it's just
No.
about local?
That's a contribution to local.
Yeah, it's local.
It's sort of.
Yeah.
Collecting it from you, and then they're giving it back to you.
Right.
To fund state programs?
No, it's to fund public schools.
Public,
Just the regular public, okay, interesting. So really this would kind of be the local and the state would kind of be looked together.
so probably all of you mathematicians out there can easily compute your own tax bill. You can look up online right this very minute. You could get on and find out the value of your property. And if you're not on the water precinct, you'd multiply it times 1081, because the tax rate is a per 1,000 of value, and then divide by 1,000, and there's your bill. Pretty, and then, of course, if you have exemptions or credits, you'd have to take those into account.
What was that 174 at the bottom? Did we add that to the, oh, that's so under the water percent, they add that 174.
Right. So what, there, it's, yeah, 1081 and, what is it, 74 cents?
74 cents?
Yeah, yeah, so those in the water precinct. Please remember, okay, we get 4 tax bills. You are soon going to get your final 2 tax bills of 2023. And as always, those bills will adjust from what happened when we get the new tax rate, right? Bill number 1 and 2 is half of the previous year. We now know what the tax rate is. So for those of you who are going to see an increase, now, I looked, last night I kind of just picked through a few. I see there's one property owner whose tax bill will go up $10,000. So, that, so their third bill, their third, yeah, it's not you, Maureen. So that person's tax bill, the third one, will be $5,000 more than the last quarterly one that they paid, and then the fourth quarter due in March will be an additional $5,000. Similarly, those of you who go down, and some of you will see that decrease over those 2 tax bills. This is not unusual. I think every year, I'm trying to think of when the tax rate went down enough to lower somebody's third and fourth payment. you see that there's a difference, right? Your third and fourth tax bill is different. It's always different than your first and second because there's a new tax rate. So Will wanted me to make sure that everybody knows it could be, for some people, it will be big. I mean, if, we have one tax bill, somebody's tax bill is $136,000 in a year. And so that person's is going to go down some. I think Hilltop, I've looked at some Hilltops. Some of them are going up $400 or $500. If that's the case, their third issue tax bill will be $250 more than in the fourth one, the same thing. So it could be kind of a hit for people because it's not spread over 4. And then when next year, the first 2 tax bills will be half of the last one. So, I mean, I think that if people have problems paying their tax bills, if people think that there's a credit or an exemption that they are due, they should come in and talk to us. In the town office, we are very, we're trying to help people out as far as, credits, exemptions, abatements. If you really feel that your value is incorrect and the tax burden that is put on you is incorrect, come in the office. Contact Cara. It's not Will. Poor Will does collect all the taxes, but he can't help you as far as an abatement. He can direct you to Cara, but it's the Selectmen's office that comes up with the values. It's the Selectmen's office that decides the tax rate. So it's the Selectmen's office that will decide any abatements. Now, obviously, they have expert staff to help them, but it's really the Selectmen's office that you want to bring any questions, concerns. If we've made a mistake, if your value is wrong, we'll help you file an abatement or just fix it. So we're definitely there to help do whatever we can to make it fair. That's the idea here. It has to be as fair as possible. We're not looking to increase lots of people just to get more money. Again, the money we're collecting is what you all voted on at town meeting. The fact, so I've heard some people say, well, the value of the town's way up. What are you going to do with the extra money? No, it's this amount of money we need, and it's spread out among the property values around town, so.
Peter, did you have a?
Just an example of credit and exemption?
Elderly, there are, if you're a certain age, elderly, there are veterans credits. If you have solar, you hopefully have applied for your exemption on that if you have it on your property. And there are some, if there are people in town that because of lack of income, if they are unable to pay their tax bills because they don't have enough money, they need to come into the town office because there can be abatements due to poverty or lack of ability to pay. So, the Selectmen's office, we can try and help. I mean, if people need a payment schedule, that is something that Will can talk about to people. If people need to go on a payment plan, we're happy to help. And I always try and encourage people, it's hard. The interest rate is high for taxes, and it's high because towns need to get the money. So we need to encourage people to pay their taxes instead of investing it somewhere else. But there are ways that we can help people if they find themselves in a situation where they literally can't pay. But they need to come in and talk to us about it.
Sure.
So first of all, thank you to the Select Board for using that money to lower my tax rate. Initially, when I saw that rate come out, I thought my taxes are going up. And now that I see this, I think they might hold about the same. So thank you for doing that. I think that's wonderful news. Not so wonderful news for people whose taxes are going up, but I guess that's just part of the whole thing. So my question is, and I'm not using the right terminology, but whatever you use that money, and now we're down to we're at 7.2%. The state says 5 to 17, so we are getting dangerously close to that low end. So my question is, okay, for this year that looks sound, but going forward, going out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, the Select Board is talking about buying property, putting up a brand new police station. We're going to have, that's going to cost who knows what. Has there been any thought put against the impact of that project, a new police station, and again, I'm not privy to the details, so I might be using the wrong terminology, but that unreserved fund, are we going to blow right past that 5% lower limit, or is that going to be gone? And what's going to happen to taxes once that new police station hits? So, and the question is, obviously we can't predict all that, but what thought has been given to that? What can you share about that? Looking at the picture, for me today, it's great. I'm going to leave here a happy camper, but 5 years from now, I don't know what that looks like.
I don't know if one of the selectmen wants to pipe up, but they do talk about that when they decided to use some of it. New London has historically been in this 5 to 8% range, so this is not, they're not getting lower than they have in the past. So this isn't really that much of a change, but I do think that if the selectmen decide that in the next couple of years they're going to spend a lot of money, they will start to save some of it. But they do think of that. So let's say, so next year, no, you don't know. Each year they look at it, and so next year, this year they thought especially with the larger increase in the state education, that was unusually high. That's why they decided they said, we're going to go a little bit away from the 450, which they have been used for the past decade or so. They decided that an additional 150,000 to help mitigate, again, use of fund balance is about stabilizing the tax rate. So that's what they use it for in this case.
So my questions now become clearer as I heard your response. So we're at 7.2% right now. And these are all suppositions because really don't know what's going to happen. But let's assume we get a new police station and taxes are going to go up to support that. Mm-hmm. It seems to me we're not going to have that much wiggle room to use that unreserved fund to offset the increase in taxes due to a new police station.
Well, depending on how long the bond is. I mean, I think what they would do is bond it. So that impact may not be that great, especially if they do it coincide with the retiring of other debt.
Okay. So
30 years, we can do 30 years. Some of the smaller ones we do for 20 and 25. But, I mean, that is a good, the bonding is a good way to sort of, flatten the curve, yeah.
And I think, it's happening in London, but in other communities, they will, when there's a reevaluation, that they'll use a little bit more of that to stabilize it and then get people used to it, and then they'll reduce it the following years in the future, and then, then you go back. So you may see little spikes in that unreserved that's used to reduce the tax rate, just to, again, that's the whole idea, is to try and stabilize it as much as possible.
Yeah, and the issue of cash flow, like some towns have problems with cash flow if they don't have on-time payments of property taxes, which New London, you all ought to applaud yourselves because we have really good on-time payments here in New London, and we have quarterly payments. So our cash flow is not as precarious as some other towns where they actually still take out tax-anticipated notes in order to pay their county bill in December. So we don't have that. I don't know that New London's ever been really even in double digits. I mean, I could look back historically, but I think the last 12 years that I've been here, it's usually low, 6, 7, 8%.
This is not about the tax rate, but I was wondering, I remember last year we didn't put money into the capital reserve funds. What happened this year?
Well, the selectmen are not done with that, but I would invite you to come to their next selectmen's meeting, and they will talk about it. We had a full-day budget meeting, was that last Friday? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they floated the idea of potentially putting $1 million into capital reserves, which is close to what they've done in the past. And then at their next selectmen's meeting, they will decide which funds will get that money that they will recommend to voters to fund. That's November 9th, 5:30 right here. Anybody wants to come?
What time is it?
5:30?
Oh, 5, okay.
We have some other business first, so there'll be some other interesting things happening first, but then we'll get into budgets. And then the Budget Committee will start last week of November, 29th. So the selectmen will hopefully be completed with most of their budget. Lots of times there's things that come a little later, maybe some warrant articles, but the Budget Committee should have all that it needs at least to start.
Any other questions about the tax rate? You can check with Will on your way out. He can hand you the bill.
They should be in the mail, what, a couple
That'll,
of weeks, Will?
that'll save some postage.
Yeah, they'll probably go out into the mail. It might be a Thanksgiving kind of timing, would be my guess. Something to look forward to.
Yeah. But everybody just, if you can help out, if anybody has any questions, if your neighbors do, and if they're worried about it. And again, I mean, that the preliminary tax rate, that I didn't want to post it, but it's preliminary. Hopefully, it's gone away and nobody's worried, doesn't at least think that's what it is, because the use of that 600,000 really does bring it down. So hopefully everybody remains calm.
And the other thing is that ultimately you need to be concerned about what's your total tax bill, because rates can go up or down, but valuations and everything, and obviously some people are impacted, to the plus and some are to the negative, but ultimately it's what your total tax bill is, because it is a numbers game, and what do you end up paying? Did your taxes go up or down or stay the same? And tax rates become a little bit, people get lost around the minutia of the tax rate rather than the overall bill, so.
I mean, hopefully everybody feels like they get a good value. I think that New London, the services that you all get here, I live in another town, so I can definitely see a difference between my town and other towns in this town, so. While nobody's probably really thrilled to pay about taxes, I think you get great services here in New London. Hopefully you all agree with that.
So, any other questions, or we can move on to other business? Do we have any other business, anything?
Mike, I'm loud.
I hear you online, you're not.
Okay. I just wanted to, I had a long conversation with Putt Kidder regarding the beaches, which we had talked about at the last meeting. And I had suggested that maybe we look at doing some volunteer beach cleanup, because I think staffing shortages have impacted the beach, along with some other things. Putt had a great idea that he come to these meetings at least once, and maybe he suggested quarterly, and I said I would put that out there. He was amenable to that. Part of our discussion last time, I think it was Bob that asked about job descriptions, and BB, I believe you did the investigation on that, and there aren't any. I spend a ridiculous amount of time at the beach, and have for years and years and years. So the historical perspective, the lifeguards, they can only stay in the chair for a half an hour at a whack. But for years and years, when they weren't in the chair, they were doing things on the beach like raking and painting and weeding, and that does not happen anymore. I'm not sure why. I don't know that Putt was sure why, because he kind of inherited what he inherited, but he was totally agreeable and interested if we wanted to put together a couple of volunteer cleanups, but I think would like to come here and talk to folks. So that's what I gleaned out of that. I don't know if you have more.
I think the lifeguards stopped doing it because we had beach attendants. And so the beach attendants were supposed to keep the restrooms clean and the beach raked, because people complained the restrooms weren't clean because the lifeguards couldn't take the time to go in and clean them. So now we have beach attendants, and they are supposed to rake the beaches, clean the beaches, and lend out the boats, the paddle boards and all of that. So that's why the lifeguards don't do it.
But do we have problems filling?
No, I mean, Putnam can,
beach attendant
Putnam can
position?
assign anything he wants. So
Okay.
he can definitely assign lifeguards, because sometimes we only have one beach attendant. So certainly lifeguards can do that, and
Okay.
probably should do it. I mean, they need to keep busy. We want them to go in the water. We want them to practice, to swim, to be, ready to go. So that's what they should be doing. And I think part of it, and from what I hear from people who live near the lakes, is that people go in after hours. And so when the morning comes, there's beer cans and all debris left over from people being there once the lifeguards are gone, because they stay until 5:30. So there's a fair amount of mess that starts the day, and it should be cleaned up, as soon as they get in there.
Yeah, I have not been cognizant of that, but certainly the weeding, and I mean, we had such a bizarre weather
Yeah.
history this last summer, but when you walk into the lake, it was always flat, sandy, beautiful, clear, and because it hasn't been able to be raked consistently, the muck that is in there now is
I don't think
starting.
they can't take a rake in the water.
No.
Okay,
It was
geez.
stuff that didn't get raked that was
on
along
edge
the
of the water.
side,
Yeah.
the edge, and it has now blown into the water. The lake is dropped, and so now, and I'm speaking for Buckland because that's where I am, and I'm not sure what the situation is at Pleasant Lake in Elkins, but someone, and I don't remember who it was that was here last time, said that their husband was going to go down and, was it Lynn?
He needs a rake that's attached to a.
To a machine, yeah, it's too heavy, I think, but it's
Have
really
to rake it,
exposed
rake it.
now because the water's down, but, anyway, I would be happy to organize that in the spring if it's something we decide we want, but I do think, we are blessed to have those beaches. They're kind of treasures in the town, and I would like to see them
Yeah, it
kept
shouldn't
up.
be, there's not a lack of staffing, except to the extent Putnam has trouble hiring people. But there's enough budget, there should be clean, raked beaches all the time.
I'd be happy to have my boys come and offer a historical perspective on being a lifeguard.
Yeah, come on.
So maybe we can get Putnam for the next meeting.
I'll ask, yeah.
Uh,
You seem very interested in that and being part of this.
So it seems like there's two things going on here. One is this, I don't know what to call it, extra raking, extra cleanup because of the bad summer that we have, and we really can't expect lifeguards or beach attendants to bring out heavy equipment and do stuff like that. So it looks like you're handling that part of it with a volunteer cleanup, which might happen once or twice a year. But then I also heard that we do have staff, and the expectation, I believe, is that they will handle the day-to-day, whether it's first thing in the morning or at the end of the shift or something else, to keep the place clean. And I think that's entirely reasonable. But then I'm a little bit concerned that there's no job description for the lifeguard or the beach attendant. There's they don't have something like,
Yeah,
here's
they're
your
not-
list of
Right,
responsibilities.
Putnam he goes through training with them. There's not a job description like we have for the full-time people, I think is what BB probably
Oh,
looked
okay,
into.
okay.
Yeah, lifeguards are certified, they have certain tasks that they do, Putnam trains on them. Putnam assigns the duties to the beach attendants. Again, it includes lending out boats, checking people's licenses, there's that piece of it. And it was the bathrooms. Now, they don't have as much work to do in the bathrooms now, the beach attendants, because we have them professionally cleaned. Because even right, it started to be where, these 15, 16-year-old people would come in the morning, and again, people use the restrooms until 8 or 9 at night, and they're sometimes a mess. And so we have them professionally cleaned, the person goes before opening. So at least it starts out clean.
Yeah.
So the attendants really only have to make sure there's toilet paper, if there's stuff on the floor, they pick that up. So there's plenty of time for them to be raking, to be picking up, to doing
Yeah.
things like that. Again, they can't take out equipment, they don't have lawnmowers or anything like that. That's Public Works, who come and take the trash, they should be mowing the grass, and things like that, so.
Well, the other part of that, too, is just as an observation, and I understand there's lifeguards and there's beach attendants. The lifeguards have certain rules. They can only be in the chair for 30 minutes, but, and this isn't a criticism, it's just an observation. I've been to the beach many times where I'll see one lifeguard up in the chair and 3 lifeguards behind the shack just hanging out there playing cards and talking on their phones. So to me, it's okay, you can be in that chair for 30 minutes, the other 30 minutes, take 15 minutes of your 30 and pick up some cans. I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable to ask a lifeguard to do part of cleanup. So it seems like there's plenty of people there, and it just needs to get the
Putnam has his
message.
hands full. I mean, he has to try and motivate these people. Yes, these young people have phones. I wish they couldn't even bring them to work, but, I mean, you cannot, we want these people to work. I wish we could make them leave the phones in their cars. They're not
But
going
I
to do
think
it.
that's, isn't that the reason you have a job description? You show it to them, you say, this is
Yeah,
what
but
you're going to
it's-
do, do you want the job or not?
Yeah, it's easy to
I
say,
mean,
Bob,
here's
but
your
that's
job
what-
description, right?
That's
They'll say, no,
the,
we don't want the job.
that's what Putnam,
I'm sorry, what?
right. It's 16, 17-year-old workers maybe aren't like you were when you were that age or me. And Putnam walks a fine line with people saying, Putnam, tell them they're fired if they don't do X, Y, Z. But he needs to manage these people with the way they work now. And, yeah, there are people who say, I see them sitting behind the shed. They're on break, and then maybe somebody walks over. It's not that easy for Putnam. I think he tries to motivate and tries to get them to, sit in the chair, look face forward. Don't be, slouching. Don't have your sweatpants on, even though it's cold. And so he has to tell them those things. So I think he does a good job, but it's not easy. Managing young people, young workers now is not as easy as it used to be. So
Sorry, who was Putnam?
Putnam is the rec director.
Rec director. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Nancy?
So I think a major spring cleanup with volunteers makes complete sense. Every camp and other places do that, and probably maybe times when they pull out the docks and the raft, because people go out there in the winter, they go ice fishing. I mean, I remember when I was a waterfront director needing to go and rake not only the invasive stuff that was coming in, but we would find, fishing hooks and broken bottles and whatever in the beach areas. So that's just prudent, and that goes back to when lifeguards and people on waterfronts were talked about water safety, which includes all of the land around that and everything else and being on top of that. And there are times when one in the chair is fine, but if there are a lot of people in that water, you want to have people on the shore with eyeballs on those people as much as the guy or woman in the chair, so just saying.
And just, I think people rally around that. I think the point of Volunteer Day is good. And if it's properly communicated, people truly rally. They like that, to do that kind of thing.
Maureen just suggested, we do it in London cleanup day, and maybe that could.
I think that's a fantastic idea.
We already do it, yeah, we added to it.
And now then you want somebody else to all the
All right. Anything else?
What does he pay the beach attendants and lifeguards? I might be interested.
I tried to get adults, Municipal Matters, I tried to get adults to become lifeguards or beach. I'm begging people, if you guys want to do it, it's a great job. You're at the, yeah, I mean, I would be a lifeguard if I could do that test, you have to be in the water. If I had fins on my feet, I could probably make it, but you got to tread water for a long time, I couldn't. But I really wanted some adults to do it. I mean, guys are in good shape, you could do it. So think about it. I think we pay lifeguards, 17, 18, around there, to
15,
start.
16, beach attendants, it's 12.
Yeah, I mean, nice summer job. I encourage everybody.
One suggestion is, I remember when my boys were lifeguards down there in Buckland, there was one lifeguard who was kind of like the leader. They got paid a little bit more than the other lifeguards, so it was an incentive for them to make sure everybody was doing their job rather than be spot checked by an adult.
Yeah, we've had that as well. Oh, yeah, the
And-
most senior lifeguard.
And do they actually, do they what?
Yeah, I think it's a different world out there, is all I can
Okay,
say.
sorry.
I mean, you have some people who are more enthusiastic and more, responsible, and you have others that show up. I mean, and I tell you, there's not a lot of people that need jobs around here in that age group, I guess, because it used to be, when I was younger, and I was never a lifeguard, it was a hard job to get. It was just the best, the most in-shape people, and, right, and it was a hard-to-get job. Now, I mean, we pay for them to become certified. We do all these things to try and attract them here, and then when Putnam gets them, they'll say, well, I need to take this week off, my family's going here, but, Howie even keeps track of who can be where. And it's sporting events, there's this, and some of them forget even to tell him and say, oh, I can't work next week at all. So it's not an easy thing for him to manage all these people, to even find the people. We haven't had a full complement of how many lifeguards we want in several years. Again, there's no waiting list to be a lifeguard around here. We don't have too many of them. And it's unfortunate. And maybe, I'll bet you when your sons were, Maureen, your sons were lifeguards, I bet it was a hard job to get, or at least they had to show them. Right, but it's not that way anymore. And so, to the extent any of you have young kids or grandkids, make them work for the town of London next summer.
Don't give them an allowance.
No allowances. Cut off the flow of cash so that they actually need to work. And then you have the issue of rain. Putnam struggles with that. These people also have to be able to say, well, I might not get to work a full week, because if it rains, they don't work. So Putnam has worked on having training sessions, so he can at least bring them in, they can make some money, and they do training. But if you have, like this summer, it rained a lot. And those folks who needed to work, well, sometimes they have to go somewhere where they're definitely going to get hours. So it's a really hard thing, I think. But I think Putnam really does a good job in trying to manage all those variables to get people there.
So if you want those jobs, we can give you the senior lifeguard stipends to
right.
Raise that pay up.
How great would that be? And the town pays for you to become certified. Yeah, Putnam did a career day. They all know that there are jobs here, but the college, they're desperate for pool guards. They need pool guards too. And we try, right, so we try, and we even pay more than the pool guards get, and I feel bad for the college, but hey, it's every man or woman for himself. We need people. So, and we're a good employer. Putnam's good to work with, but it's, a lot of variables going on. We had a sunny summer where they worked a lot, but again, some of them don't really want to work a lot. They're fine with working little.
Okay. So just a reminder, people from the groups would just kind of send me a point of contact so that we can go on, and then maybe next month we can have some actual reports of progress. So, Bill?
So everybody may have seen that the Selectmen are going to have another one of their community-wide sessions on December 15th at Colby Sawyer, beginning at 8 or 8:30. And it would be interesting if any of you have suggestions of things we ought to cover there. And I guess I have a question, John, as to whether or not that's so close to the December meeting of this group as to whether we should maybe not have the next one 10 days before, but that's for the group to decide.
And what's the sentiment of the group?
Hopefully it'll be different.
Yeah, so we'll go with this, keep this on the December, and it's early in, I think, 2 weeks, and so, and we're not giving up 2 Saturdays. Peter, you had it.
I hope to see Bob lying in a chair this year at the beach.
I'm going to send him an application.
Oh, no, he would probably be very good at it and could motivate a lot of kids to do it.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
I think blaze orange is his color.
No Speedos allowed.
Yeah.
We have a stipend for the suit. We'll even pay for the suit.
But can I go back to taxes just for a minute?
Sure.
At the last meeting we had up at Colby, there was I had a question about the reevaluation. It's every 5 years, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the comment was made, an example, the assessments, the economy just tanks, and all the property values go way down immediately. Would that mean that they could reevaluate earlier?
Sure.
And who dictates that?
The selectmen. What would happen is Chris McAllister, the chief assessor, if she were to notice something like that, like we were 110% of assessed value, let's say, if our rate was 110 or 120,
Yeah.
she would go to the selectmen and say, look, this is what we can do, we should do, just like she did when we were low. That's why we did this reevaluation recently, because we were so low. If it was the other way around, the same thing would happen.
So even though the state mandates 5 years,
Right.
she can overrule that.
Well, it's not overruling. I mean, we can do it every year. The town could do it.
Oh, you
a
could
full
do it
one
every
every year if it wanted to. It's expensive, and you wouldn't do that, but you could. The state put that rule in to make sure that towns did it, because there were some towns, it was 10, 15, 20 years, and their equalized value was like 30%. And so the state is really on that now, to make sure that towns do it. But certainly, if we were overvalued, then the selectmen would be talking about that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
But unless expenditures go down.
No difference in the tax rate. Right.
Tax
The-
bill.
The problem with that is what happens is there's usually a class or two that's more overassessed than someone else, or, so that's the unfairness of it. If lakefront properties are selling extremely well and condos are not, then there's a bigger difference, and that's really not fair, and that's why we do these adjustments, right? But you're right. If all things being equal, even if we lower the assessment, the tax rates are same. The tax bill is the same.
The rate will go up and the bill stays the same.
Exactly.
So just a mini update from the Housing Commission, which we had talked about the last time a bit. Twin Pines is still waiting. They're anticipating in mid-December to hear whether or not they've received the funds in order to be able to do the water component, which is necessary. So that's been the major delay with that. In addition to that, the Housing Commission has been working on reviewing proposed policies specific to accessory dwelling units that are attached and accessory dwelling units that are detached, as a proposal that would go to town meeting. We're still in the preliminary discussions of that. We have another meeting on the 15th. Perhaps by the December meeting, we'd be in a better position to go through those, and I'll talk to Peter about that. But that's just a brief summary.
Okay. Thanks, Nancy. And Peter again.
You mentioned water. The Springfield Water Commission, New London Water Commission, are they going to be starting the roads or digging up the roads? No, not
Even for
now.
the water
not
main
now.
replacement.
But I mean, did they have a plan in place to start?
I have not seen, I don't think they have the funding yet. Bill's been going to those meetings, so he may have some additional info on it.
So they have now received plans from their engineers as to what they want done. The price tag was $2 to $5 million. They've asked the engineer to go back and try to massage that a bit. They indicated at their last meeting that they hope to start in April. That seems to me to be a little aggressive because they first of all have to get the financing and so on, but I think we'll learn more this Monday at 4 o'clock if people want to go to the monthly Water Commissioners meetings, first Monday of every month at 4 o'clock at the Stump Dump office there. They're also this month apparently going to hear from their other engineers about possible new sources of water in town. So could be an interesting meeting at 4 o'clock on Monday.
And do they have is the ARPA funding that was awarded, do they have that in that, is that included in that cost, or did they
The
get that?
town gave 25% of the opera fund, so they've spent that pretty much, almost finished spending it.
About 20,000.
Yeah, so they've been using that for engineering costs.
Oh, okay, all right. So that's included in that, or they've used that towards
They've used
it?
it.
Okay.
Lots
See?
going on in New London, people.
Yeah. Seeing any other? We can entertain a motion to adjourn, and we'll see you on December 2nd, bright and early.
Bright and early.